Okay, we're back at the heating element repair. It's cool to the touch, and you can also test. We saw that high resistance when it was hot, and I'm down 12.2, 12.3, so that's about right. This repairing a shorted heating element, as it turns out, is a real boon. By the looks of this element, this might have been replaced at some point. Some of these early elements, they had a 220 and they just swapped it out for a different one. But it's very difficult to braze these ends in and to put in an element like this. Your alternatives, let's say that you couldn't cure it. Let's say that you baked it and you still had, when you went from a terminal to the base, it was still shorted, which would mean that there was a problem. The internal wire inside of here was touching, or there was a void, or you even can get oil or a melted spot. Let's just say that you couldn't get rid of the short. These are your alternatives. One is that you can install a new coil through the plate. That basically the way this is done is that you turn it this way, you put it in a vise, cut the element off with a hacksaw, then you take a small drill and you drill out the center part, then you take a 1/2-inch drill, which is the equivalent of a 1/4-inch BPP fitting, which is what these are. You take a 1/2-inch drill and you drill through the plate and just simply install. You see these are the same distance. You simply install this through with a silicone washer, tighten down the jam nuts, and you've got you can use your base with this element. The difference is that now you see this is the best element that we can find. It's 1,000 watts, but it sits up a little higher, so you have to be aware of this down the road when you're filling the machine, that your empty spot is a little different. This is one alternative. This is the most economical alternative. This is the element that's available from Olympia-Express, and this was used from 2002 to the present. As you can see, it's a different style. Rather than the thermal safety switch going over here into this well, it's mounted right in the center. These are the terminals, and you can see it's different here. So if you were to go this route, now you have an added complication, is that, as you see, these two pieces fit like this with your switch button over the side. Now this switch button is no longer functional because the reset is now in the center. So you have to do some manipulations. You'd have to, if you want to use this button, you have to make a hole in the center of this. Another thing that happens is that when you install your group onto the boiler, this is the siphon tube that comes from the group. It basically sits down here. It withdraws water right from the center of the heating element. And here, this creates a real issue, because you have to reorient this tube. Basically, you have to bend it sideways so it'll fit down beside it one way or the other. So if you're going to go with this is the only available part. They don't sell this one anymore. If you're going to go with this, you have to do certain changes to the machine. If you're going to go with this, you can use your original base, but you have to drill and seal and be aware of the slight height differences. So we have no idea how many new heating elements have been sold over time for this fixable short. It's quite simply what we do. Now that we've ascertained, once again, I'll keep checking this because it's too good to be true, but it is true. The short is gone. So I just take one of many used up tape holders. You can see down in here the white ceramic is still intact, and so the sides, these posts that conduct the electricity, they're still in the center. There's no danger of them touching the sides. If this was degraded, we would install a little bit of high temperature epoxy that we just use a putty. Fahrenheit something, Fahrenheit high temp, whatever the product name is.
I don't remember what it is.
But it's a putty that we put down in here to stabilize these, to make sure that you can't pull it and they don't bend. But in this case, we won't need the putty. We can just use the sealant. This is I use a lot of these little bamboo skewers. Take a little jar, stir it up.
And this is Gliptol.
Gliptol is the name of this compound. It's a very old, classic compound. It's paintable. It's used in electric motors, and it'll just flow into all of those little points. You go ahead and you put enough on so it flows all around. And this will, you could use silicone if you chose, but it doesn't flow as well as this. This is the real stuff. And they use a similar product when they seal these at the factory. You just go ahead and put it on and get it. Make sure that it's in all the voids. My Gliptol's getting a little thick.
Notice that.
That first one I got better than this one. Okay, let's take a look at it. Put a little more on this side. Probably this hot weather. Which I'm not complaining.
Me either. It's nice.
Okay, we just make sure we've covered the entire top of it and it all just kind of flows around nicely. Alright. And that is the sealing of the repaired element. Now we'll let this sit for, it takes a couple hours, it'll skin over and shrink down a little bit, but this is basically the last step of saving 120 Swiss francs on that one. I think this one's about 50 bucks plus a lot of labor. So there we go, we have the original element and it's cured, and when that dries, we're ready to install it on the boiler. How much time we got, Barb?
8 minutes and 8 seconds.
Okay, we've got a lot of time. There's one thing I forgot. The next, I set this aside just to let it dry. In my haste, I forgot to remove that. So this is the last thing I have to do before we start the rebuild. And so, as you can see, this is sometimes problematical, especially if I've lost my skill knife. When was the last time I saw that one? Oh, that's a bummer. Where did I put it?
You could use mine.
Okay, I'll grab yours. Okay, if you get a close-up of the end of this seal.
Oops, too close.
Too close?
Sorry about that, guys.
This is the screw is buried down in this part of believe it or not, this was rubber to begin with. So first I want to expose that. Boy, you got a sharp skill knife.
Don't cut yourself.
I say you can't cut yourself with a sharp knife.
It's a lie.
Okay, I'm going to get down here.
I almost never cut myself with a dull knife. Of course, I don't cut anything else with a dull knife either.
Oh, this thing is so hard. Okay, I'm going to have to go to plan B again. This is one technique that can save yourself a lot of heartbreak. Now that I've got this thing so nice and shiny, I'm going to have to get it dirty again. Take this and grab it with a vice grip. Sorry about that blade. And I'll take my propane. As that seal is so paralyzed and hard that you basically don't want to overdo this. You just play the flame down there on the end until you can make some headway finding the screw head. That's the first thing we want to do. And then we want to see if we're going to be able to get that out. You can burn it out completely, but you stand the danger of weakening that cup. The cup's kind of fragile. Okay, let me cool this down. Now you get the screwdriver of choice. Is a fairly small bitted driver. You get in there and you find the screw head. It's still pretty hot, believe it or not. Grab a hold of the cup with your finger. You get down in the screw head. And you heat it some more. Too bad I didn't think of doing this when we were doing all the medieval work on the...
That's true.
No, I got sidetracked somehow. I'm just going to have to, at this point, and you definitely don't want to get in with a Dremel on this one because you can damage either the screw or the cup yourself. I'm just going to have to do some arcing and sparking down in there. This kind of does two things. It loosens up the screw and it also gets rid of the seal. I'm going to go straight to cold water in this one. Plus it stinks the place up.
It does kind of do that.
You see that the heat just turns that old seal into dust. There are no great tools to hold this thing still. The leather-jawed vice grips is one that can work. You push in. And you don't want to you don't want to tear that thing off, man. It's better to do this numerous times than to overflame it. I'd like to see that just pop out. This is you have to do this, flame these things out about half the time. If you can see the screw head, usually it's not in very bad shape. But if the screw head's buried like that particular one is, or was, now we're getting some real burning action.
That's the seal that's burning,
That's
correct?
just the seal, yeah. Let's see if I can pick some out while it's hot. Cool it down again. The smallest things, you know, you think you're just going along just fine, and you've cured this and cured that, and wow, it's hot. And then there's some little thing that sets you back and causes you to...
15, 20, 15, 25.
Okay, well, we're going to have to come back here in a second.